What would you do if your boyfriend came home with a random girl and told you she was moving in? In this video, I tell the crazy story of how a good deed turned into my worst nightmare. From ruined kitchenware to late-night TikToks and a shocking betrayal, this is the story of the girl who tried to take over my life. Stick around to the end to find out if I kicked them both to the curb. So there I was, just sitting on my lumpy gray couch and trying to finish my homework, when the front door clicked open. I didn't even look up at first because I knew it was just my boyfriend, Mike, coming back from his shift at the gym. We had been living together for like 6 months, and usually the biggest drama of my night was figuring out if we had enough milk for cereal or if I'd have to eat it dry. But then I heard a laugh that definitely didn't belong to Mike. It was this high, chirpy sound, like a bird that was trying way too hard to be cute. I froze, my pen hovering over my notebook, as Mike walked into the tiny living room with this girl trailing behind him like a lost puppy. Mike looked at me with this weird, forced grin that told me he knew he was in big trouble. The girl was wearing these tiny denim shorts and a top that looked like it was made out of a single shoelace. She had huge blonde hair and was clutching a pink suitcase that looked like it belonged to a doll. Mike cleared his throat and said, "Hey babe, this is Tiffany. I met her at the bus station. She's new in town and doesn't have a place to stay, so I told her she could crash here for a bit." I just stared at him, my mouth probably hanging open. I wasn't even mad yet, I was just deeply confused about how his brain worked. Tiffany waved a hand with bright neon nails and gave me a look that was half sweet and half scary. "Oh my God, hi," she squeaked, stepping over my pile of shoes like they were trash. "You must be the roommate. Mike told me he lived with a girl, but he didn't say you were so cozy looking." I was wearing my oversized hoodie with a giant pizza stain on the front, and my hair was in a bun that looked like a bird's nest, so yeah, cozy was a nice way of saying I looked like a bridge troll. I looked back at Mike, waiting for him to say he was joking, but he just started hauling her giant suitcase into our tiny spare room that we used for laundry and my old bike. I stood up, feeling my face get really hot, which always happens when I'm about to blow a fuse. I followed Mike into the hallway and hissed his name so loud it sounded like a tea kettle. He turned around, putting his hands up like I was holding a weapon. "Look, I know it's sudden," he whispered, looking back toward the living room where Tiffany was already making herself at home. But she was literally crying on a bench. She's from out of state and her friend flaked on her. I couldn't just leave her there to get snatched up by a weirdo. It's just for a few days until she finds a job and a real spot. I wanted to scream. "A few days? Mike, we live in a one-bedroom apartment with a walk-in closet you call a spare room. You can't just pick up stray humans like they're abandoned kittens." He gave me that puppy dog look he uses when he forgets to do the dishes, and for a second, I felt like the mean one. But then I heard a loud thud from the living room. We ran back out to find Tiffany had already opened her suitcase, and clothes were exploding everywhere. She had draped a sparkly jacket over my favorite lamp, and was currently trying to plug her phone charger into the outlet behind the TV. "I hope you guys don't mind. I need to charge my phone ASAP," Tiffany said without looking up. "My battery is at 2% and I literally cannot live without my music." I looked at Mike, and he just gave me a weak thumbs up. I realized then that my peaceful life was officially over. I went back to my couch, but I couldn't focus on anything. I just watched out of the corner of my eye as she started humming a song that sounded like a broken blender. She seemed to have zero idea that she was intruding on a whole-ass relationship. That first night was a total nightmare. Mike thought it would be polite to order pizza for everyone, but Tiffany spent 20 minutes complaining that she only ate gluten-free, organic, non-dairy toppings. We ended up getting her a salad that cost more than the actual pizza. While we ate, she told us her life story, which was basically just a list of every guy who had ever done her wrong. She talked so fast I could barely keep up, and she kept touching Mike's arm whenever she made a point. I was sitting right there, and she was acting like I was a piece of furniture that happened to eat pepperoni. When it was finally time for bed, I thought I'd get some peace. Nope. The spare room didn't have a real bed, just a thin air mattress that leaked. Every 10 minutes, I could hear the hiss of the pump as Tiffany tried to reinflate it. Then she started watching TikToks at full volume. I could hear every annoying dance song and laugh track through the thin walls. Mike was already snoring, totally oblivious to the fact that I was vibrating with rage. I laid there staring at the ceiling, wondering how I was going to survive 24 hours of this, let alone a few days. The next morning was even worse. I woke up to the smell of something burning. I ran into the kitchen to find Tiffany trying to make special eggs in my favorite nonstick pan. She was using a metal fork to scrape them around, and I could literally see the black coating of the pan flaking off into the food. "Morning," she chirped, looking way too awake for 7:00 a.m. "I couldn't find your butter, so I used some of that fancy oil in the tall bottle." That fancy oil was a $30 bottle of truffle oil my mom gave me for my birthday. I felt a vein in my forehead start to throb. I didn't even say anything. I just snatched the fork out of her hand and moved the pan off the heat. Mike walked in then, rubbing his eyes and looking all groggy and cute. Tiffany immediately hopped over to him and started pouting. "I think I broke your girlfriend's pan, Mikey. I'm so clumsy." She actually giggled. Mike just chuckled and patted her head. "It's fine, Tiffany. We can just get a new one." I looked at him like he had grown a second head. "We can get a new one? With what money?" He was the one who always complained about the electric bill being $5 too high. By the time I got home from school that afternoon, the apartment looked like a tornado had hit a glitter factory. There were makeup wipes on the bathroom sink, a damp towel on the floor, and the smell of cheap perfume was everywhere. Tiffany was lounging on the couch, watching a reality show about people getting married to strangers. She had my favorite throw blanket wrapped around her legs. "Oh, hey," she said, not moving an inch. "I was gonna clean up, but I got a really bad headache. Also, your Wi-Fi is kind of slow. Is there a better password?" I went into the bedroom and slammed the door. I called my best friend, Chloe, and vented for 30 minutes. Chloe told me I should just kick her out, but I knew Mike would make me feel like a monster if I did. He has this hero complex where he thinks he has to save everyone, even if it ruins his own life. I decided I would try to be the bigger person for one more day. I figured if I was nice, she might actually leave sooner. That was the biggest mistake of my life. That evening, Mike came home with a bunch of job flyers for Tiffany. He was really trying to help her get on her feet, but every time he showed her one, she had an excuse. "Oh, I can't work at a cafe, the steam ruins my hair," or "a receptionist job. No way, I'm not a desk person." She wanted to be a content creator, but she didn't actually have any content other than taking selfies in our bathroom mirror. I watched Mike's face as he slowly realized that his good deed was turning into a permanent houseguest. Dinner was another disaster. Tiffany offered to help by setting the table, but she spent the whole time asking Mike if he thought her outfit made her look too tan. I was sitting there with my head in my hands, wondering if I was in a hidden camera show. Then, the conversation took a turn for the weird. Tiffany started talking about how she and Mike had so much in common because they both understood the struggle of being beautiful. I choked on my water. Mike looked embarrassed, but he didn't tell her to stop. He just laughed nervously. I finally snapped when Tiffany asked if she could borrow my ID to go to a club. "You want to borrow my literal identity?" I asked, my voice getting that sharp edge that makes people back away. "First of all, we look nothing alike. Second of all, no." She puffed out her lip and looked at Mike. "She's so mean to me, Mikey. I just want to have a little fun after such a hard week." Mike looked at me and said, "Come on, it's just an ID. It's not a big deal." I couldn't believe it. I felt like I was being gaslit in my own home. I walked out of the room before I said something that would end our relationship. I went for a long walk, even though it was cold and I didn't have a jacket. I needed to breathe air that didn't smell like fake vanilla and desperation. I realized that the problem wasn't just Tiffany. The problem was that Mike wasn't respecting my boundaries or our home. He was letting this stranger walk all over us because he wanted to feel like a big, strong savior. I decided right then that when I got back, things were going to change. When I walked back into the apartment, it was quiet. I thought maybe they had gone to sleep, but then I heard whispering coming from the kitchen. I crept down the hall, feeling like a spy in my own house. I peeked around the corner and saw Mike and Tiffany sitting at the small kitchen table. They were leaning in close, and she was holding his hand. My heart dropped into my stomach. I felt a cold chill wash over me. Was this why he brought her home? Was this whole sad bus station story just a big lie so he could cheat right under my nose? I stepped into the light, and they both jumped apart like they'd been shocked. Mike's face went white. "Sarah, you're back. We were just talking." Tiffany didn't even look guilty. She just tucked a lock of hair behind her ear and gave me a smug little smile. "Yeah, Mike was just giving me some emotional support." I was feeling really down about my life. I looked at their hands, then at Mike's eyes. I didn't feel like crying. I felt like a volcano that was about to erupt. "Get out," I said. My voice was low and flat. Mike started to scramble. Wait, babe, it's not what it looks like. I cut him off. I don't care what it looks like. I don't care what it is. I want her out of this house right now, and if you don't like it, you can go with her. Tiffany rolled her eyes and stood up. Fine, this place is way too small anyway. It's like living in a shoebox. She started grabbing her stuff, throwing it into her pink suitcase with zero care. Mike was begging me to listen, but I wasn't hearing any of it. I watched as Tiffany zipped up her bag and headed for the door. She didn't even say thank you for the food or the place to sleep. She just looked at me and said, "You really need to chill out, honey. Stress causes wrinkles." Then she walked out into the night, probably looking for her next victim. I turned to Mike, who was standing there looking like he'd just lost a fight with a ghost. "We need to talk," I said, and for the first time in 2 days, the apartment was finally quiet. Mike stood there in the middle of the rug, looking like a little kid who just got caught drawing on the walls with a red marker. The silence was so heavy I felt like I was underwater. I could still hear the faint sound of Tiffany's pink suitcase wheels clicking against the sidewalk outside, getting further and further away. I didn't say anything. I just stared at him, waiting for the lie. I knew a lie was coming because Mike's left eye always blinks really fast when he's about to say something fake. "It wasn't like that, Sarah," he finally said. His voice was all shaky and weak. "She was just crying. She was telling me how her dad doesn't talk to her and how she felt so alone in this city. I only held her hand to make her feel like someone cared. It was like a brother thing, I swear." I almost laughed, but it would have been a mean laugh. "A brother thing? I have a brother, and if I was crying, he'd probably just tell me to stop being loud because he was playing video games. He definitely wouldn't be staring into my eyes in a dark kitchen at midnight." I stood up and walked over to the kitchen counter. I saw a small piece of paper sitting right where Tiffany had been. It was a receipt from a coffee shop downtown. The date was from 3 days ago. My heart did a weird little flip-flop. "3 days ago?" I asked, holding the paper up like it was a piece of evidence in a big court case. "Mike, you told me you met her at the bus station yesterday. This receipt says you guys were at the Beanery on Tuesday afternoon. You were supposed to be at the gym, working your shift." Mike's face went from white to a bright, scary red. He started rubbing the back of his neck, which is his second big "I'm lying" sign. "Okay, fine, I didn't meet her at the bus station," he blurted out. "I met her on that app, the one for making friends, Bumble BFF or whatever. I just wanted to help her out because she seemed so lost. I knew if I told you I met a girl on an app, you'd flip out, so I made up the bus station thing to make it sound more like a random good deed." I felt like I had been punched in the stomach. He didn't just bring home a stranger, he had been planning this. He had been talking to this girl behind my back and then invited her into our home where I sleep and eat and live. "You lied to me for 3 days," I said, my voice starting to shake. "You let me feel like a mean person for wanting our privacy back, all while you were playing house with some girl you met on the internet, and you let her ruin my favorite pan." I know the pan shouldn't have been the biggest deal, but it felt like the cherry on top of a giant cake of lies. "I just wanted to be a hero, Sarah," Mike shouted back, finally losing his cool. "You're always so tough and you have everything figured out. Tiffany actually needed me. She looked up to me. It felt good to be the guy who saves the day for once." I just looked at him, feeling really sad all of a sudden. He didn't want to help her because he was a good guy. He wanted to help her because it made him feel big and important. It was all about his own ego. He didn't care that he was making me feel small and crazy in my own apartment. I told him to give me his phone. He hesitated for a second, then handed it over like he was surrendering. I didn't even have to look hard. The messages were right there. They weren't just friend messages. Tiffany had sent him like 50 selfies, and he had replied to every single one with stuff like "You're so strong," and "Don't worry, I'll take care of you." There was even a message where he told her I was a bit moody, but that she shouldn't worry because he ran the house. I felt a hot tear run down my cheek. I wasn't just mad anymore, I was done. "You run the house?" I asked, pointing at the messy living room. "You don't even run the vacuum, Mike. I pay 60% of the rent because your gym job doesn't cover your half. I do the grocery shopping. I make sure the bills are paid on time. And you brought a girl here to tell her I'm moody while she eats the food I bought." Mike went quiet again. He knew I had him. There was no way out of this one. I didn't even want to hear another word. I walked into our bedroom and grabbed his big gym bag. I started throwing his clothes into it, his workout shirts, his smelly socks, his favorite hoodie. He followed me, trying to grab my hands to make me stop. "Wait, Sarah, let's just talk about this tomorrow. We're both tired. We can fix this." "There's nothing to fix," I said, zipping the bag so hard the metal teeth groaned. "You can go find Tiffany. I'm sure she's still wandering around with her pink suitcase. Maybe she has a spot on her leaky air mattress for a hero like you." I pushed the bag into his chest. He looked at me with these big, wet eyes, but I didn't feel bad for him at all. I felt like I was finally waking up from a really bad dream. He stood by the door for a long time, holding his bag and looking at the floor. "Where am I supposed to go?" he asked. "I don't have any money for a hotel." I shrugged. "Not my problem. Call your mom, call your gym bros, or go back to the bus station. I hear there are lots of people there who need a hero." I didn't wait for him to respond. I just walked him to the door and shut it. I turned the deadbolt and the chain. The sound of the lock clicking into place was the most satisfying thing I'd heard all year. I spent the next 3 hours cleaning. I scrubbed the kitchen counter until it shone. I threw away the special eggs and the ruined pan. I took the throw blanket Tiffany had used and put it straight into the trash can outside. I didn't even want to wash it. I just wanted it gone. I sprayed so much air freshener that I started coughing, but I didn't care. I needed the smell of that girl out of my life forever. Around 3:00 a.m., my phone started buzzing. It was a text from Chloe. "OMG, did you see Tiffany's Instagram story?" I opened the app and there she was, sitting in a late-night diner, pouting at the camera. The caption said, "Kicked out into the cold by a jealous friend. Some people just can't handle a girl with good vibes. At least I have my sparkle." I rolled my eyes so hard I thought they might get stuck. She was already making herself the victim of the story. Then a new story popped up. It was a picture of Mike sitting across from her at the diner. He looked miserable, like he was about to cry into his pancakes. The caption read, "My knight in shining armor came to find me. True friends never leave you behind. Blessed new beginnings." I didn't cry this time. I actually laughed. They deserved each other. They could live in a world of fake stories and leaky air mattresses for all I cared. I blocked both of them right then and there. I blocked Mike's number, his Instagram, his Facebook, and even his LinkedIn. I didn't want to see his hero face ever again. I went back to the living room and sat on my couch. It felt bigger now. The whole apartment felt bigger. It was small and the rent was high, but it was mine. I didn't have to share it with a liar or a girl who didn't know how to use a pan. The next morning, I woke up to a bunch of missed calls from Mike's mom, but I ignored those two. I knew she'd just try to tell me he didn't mean it and that he was just trying to be nice. I didn't need to hear it. I went to the store and bought myself a brand new, high-end nonstick pan. It was expensive, but it felt like a trophy. I came home and made the best grilled cheese sandwich of my life. A few weeks later, I heard from a guy at the gym that Mike and Tiffany tried to stay together in a tiny studio apartment, but it only lasted 4 days. Apparently, Tiffany found out Mike didn't actually have any money, and she left him for a guy who owned a jet ski. Mike tried to move back in with his parents, but his room had already been turned into a craft room for his mom. I felt a little bit of justice, tingles in my chest when I heard that. Now, when I look back, I realize that Tiffany was actually a gift. She showed me exactly who Mike was before I wasted any more years on him. She was like a human wrecking ball that smashed through my life, but she only broke the things that were already cracked. I'm still living in the same apartment, and honestly, it's never been cleaner. I even got a new throw blanket. It's blue, it's fuzzy, and nobody is allowed to touch it but me. I still see people like Tiffany sometimes when I'm out, girls who act like the world is their personal stage and everyone else is just an extra. I just keep walking and smile to myself. I know I'm not a hero, and I'm definitely not a damsel in distress. I'm just a girl who knows how to protect her space and her pans. And honestly, that's way better than being blessed. The drama doesn't end when the guest leaves. In this final part of the story, I confront my boyfriend about the lies, the hand-holding, and the real reason he brought a stranger into our home. Watch as I uncover the truth behind his hero complex and finally take my life back. It's a story of betrayal, receipts, and the ultimate satisfaction of a clean apartment. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more real-life drama. It had been 3 months since the whole thing with Mike and that girl with the pink suitcase. My apartment still smelled like the ocean breeze, spray I used to drown out her cheap perfume, and honestly, I was loving the peace. No leaky air mattresses, no ruined pans, and definitely no boys trying to be a hero for every random person they met on the street. I was content with just me, my cat, and my homework. But then Chloe started bugging me. She said I was rotting and needed to get back out there before I forgot how to talk to people who weren't on a screen. I didn't want to do it, but I finally made a profile on one of those apps. I made sure to put, "I don't need a hero," right at the top of my bio. I didn't want anyone who felt the need to save me. I wanted someone who could just, be a normal person. After a week of swiping left on guys who took too many gym selfies or had pictures of themselves holding big fish, I found Jake. He had a nice smile, a dog that looked like a burnt piece of toast, and his bio just said he liked tacos and hated slow walkers. It was simple. I liked simple. We messaged for a few days, and he didn't once ask me if I was moody or tell me he ran the house. He actually asked me what kind of books I liked and if I thought pineapple belonged on pizza. It does, and he agreed, so that was a win. We decided to meet up at this tiny taco place downtown. I spent way too long picking out an outfit. I didn't want to look cozy like I did when I met Tiffany, but I didn't want to look like I was trying too hard either. I settled on my favorite jeans and a black shirt that made me feel like a cool spy. Walking into the taco shop, my heart was doing that weird drum roll thing. I looked around the room, half scared I'd see Mike and Tiffany sharing a plate of nachos, but the coast was clear. Then I saw him. Jake was sitting at a small table in the corner, and he looked just like his pictures, only better. He wasn't wearing a cape or looking for someone to rescue. He was just a guy in a flannel shirt, scrolling on his phone and waiting for his date. I took a deep breath, adjusted my bag, and walked over. "Hey, you must be Jake," I said, trying to sound way more chill than I actually felt. He looked up and his whole face lit up in a way that didn't feel fake or heroic. It just felt nice. "And you must be Sarah," he said, standing up to give me a quick, polite hug. "I already ordered some chips and guac because I didn't want us to sit here with empty hands. Hope that's okay." I nodded, feeling a tiny bit of the stress melt away. He wasn't trying to take over, he was just being thoughtful. We started talking, and for the first 20 minutes I was on high alert. I was looking for any sign that he was secretly a weirdo. If he mentioned a friend who needed a place to stay, I was going to run out the back door. If he told me I looked stressed, I was going to throw my water at him. But he didn't. He talked about his job at the tech shop and how his dog once tried to eat a whole shoe. He was funny in a quiet way, the kind of funny that makes you giggle instead of just rolling your eyes. Then the conversation turned to past stuff. I knew it was coming. The "why are you single?" question is like a boss battle in a video game. I didn't want to tell him the whole saga of the bus station girl, but I didn't want to lie either. "My last breakup was a lot," I said, picking at a chip. He had a bit of a hero complex. He thought he could save everyone, and he forgot that he actually had a life and a girlfriend at home. Jake listened, nodding along without interrupting me once. "That sounds exhausting," Jake said. He didn't try to defend the guy or make it about himself. I never understood people like that. Life is hard enough just taking care of your own business. Why would you want to add more mess to it? I felt a huge wave of relief. He got it. He wasn't a savior type. He was just a guy who knew that drama was something you watched on TV, not something you invited into your kitchen to ruin your pans. As the night went on, I found myself actually having fun. I wasn't thinking about Mike's lies or Tiffany's pink suitcase. I was thinking about how Jake's eyes crinkled when he laughed and how he didn't mind that I got taco sauce on my chin. It felt easy. It felt like how things were supposed to be before everything went sideways. We stayed at that taco shop until the lights started to dim and the staff began to stack the chairs. I didn't want the night to end, which was a feeling I hadn't had in a very long time. When we walked out into the cool night air, Jake didn't try to lead the way or tell me where to go. He just walked beside me. "So," he said, looking at me with a little grin, "I think this went pretty well. I didn't see any hero moves, did I? I didn't try to rescue any kittens or invite any strangers to live with us." I laughed, a real laugh this time. "No, you did great. You were a perfectly normal human being. It was very refreshing." We reached my car, and there was that awkward moment where you don't know if you should hug or kiss or just wave. Jake solved it by taking my hand for a second. "I'd really like to see you again, Sarah. No drama, no heroes, just more tacos. Maybe some pizza next time?" I smiled and told him I'd like that a lot. As I drove home, I realized that I wasn't just happy because the date went well. I was happy because I knew I was finally, truly, over the past. I got back to my apartment and it was quiet and clean. I looked at my new pan hanging on the wall and my fuzzy blue blanket on the couch. I felt like I had won the game. I didn't need a knight in shining armor to come save me from my life. I had saved myself, and now I was just looking for someone to share the good parts with. I sent a text to Chloe that just said, "He's normal. Tacos were 10-10. I think I'm okay." Then I went asleep, and for the first time in months, I didn't dream about bus stations or pink suitcases.